Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I have in my midst the first of my Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit palettes. This is the very popular Jellyfish palette. I'm going to be trying it on my face today, my first impressions, and I'm also going to be comparing the shades we have in there to my existing Hourglass palette collection. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so in yesterday's video, I shared all of the details on this upcoming, or now here, so it seems, launch from Hourglass, their 2023 holiday collection of these ambient lighting edits. So we now know a little bit more, and that is that there are going to be the three palettes, as I thought in my video yesterday: the leopard, the jellyfish, and the snake. And the owl palette that was like missing, where is she? Who knows? I'm sorry, I can only apologize. It's really early here and I've had 3 coffees. But the owl packaging is solely just a packaging option. Just like last year, you can customize, you can mix and match the palette that you like with the packaging that you like, and the owl packaging is like a 4th option for packaging. It's not a 4th palette, sadly. I know some of us were like hankering after that one, hoping it was going to be much deeper or just completely different to the others that we have already seen with lots of new shades, but it is not. Alas, it is just the owl packaging. Who would have thought it? I'm sorry, that's going to be the last one, I promise. So as I said in that video, I was going to pick up the snake palette. I have now ordered that when that popped back up on the UK website this morning, and that is on its way. But the jellyfish was the only one available in the UK yesterday, so I hopped on and ordered that, and that is the one that we're going to be starting off with today. So let's take a look at her. So this is the exact same look and feel to last year's holiday palettes. I picked up Tiger and Elephant last year, and this feels the exact same, has the exact same packaging materials, and also that really annoying lid that does not stay up, which I just wish they had made that so that it would stand up on its own. It's so annoying, 1, when taking photos, but 2, if you want to use this and use the mirror, you've literally got to hold it up while you're doing your makeup, which is really annoying. And just this silly little thing that could have very easily been improved for this year. It has the exact same amount of product as the previous holiday palettes, where there are 6 pans of 1.4 grams, so we're getting the exact same amount of product. It is slightly more, a bigger price hike than I thought. I think last year's palettes were 76, or were they 78? This year's £86, $90. So quite a hefty price increase, no? So first impressions, I mean, it looks kind of exactly how I expected it to. The 2 finishing powders, which are diffused light and ethereal light, are both very light for my skin tone. I've already done some swatches of these for my Instagram in the garden, and they are just very, very light for me. They're going to be very, very brightening. Even like in winter, they are going to be very brightening. I mean, this one looks almost white, so I don't think these are really going to be used a lot by myself. Maybe a little bit of brightening in the center of my face, but I don't typically use those finishing powders. Those are both permanent, already existing finishing powders, and they were both in the butterfly palette from last year. So if you have that one, you have these 2 powders already. Now the other permanent shade in here is Diffused Heat, which is a permanent shade of blush and has also appeared, I think, in some palettes previously. And then we have a brand new bronzer, Lunar Bronze, a brand new blush, which is Rose Fusion, and a brand new highlighter, which is Opal Strobe Light. The sound of that sounds amazing, and let me tell you, I already swatched it. It looks right up my street. Let's do some swatches. So we have Diffused Light, as you can see, very, very light, sort of warm toned finishing powder. Rose Fusion, which is that new blush, very, very pretty. And then here we have that new highlighter. Oof, that looks pretty, doesn't it? Then we have Lunar Bronze, quite a light bronzer, but really nice, not super warm and orangey like I expected a lot of Hourglass bronzers are, especially the lighter shades, but that looks like a really nice, slightly more neutral than usual. Here we have Diffused Heat, which is the existing blush, and then that other finishing powder. as I said, super duper light shade, perfect. I think this is going to be a really nice like fair to light medium palette. I think the Snake palette is going to be better for me and my skin tone. I will do some comparison swatches with all of the other blush and highlight and bronzers from my previous Hourglass palettes at the end, but now let's jump in to the application. Okay, so I mean, it's so annoying. But let's start off with the bronzer. I'm actually excited about this. I'm using my Sonia G Hinoki, and that is going to get in there perfectly. No issue with it, like not being able to fit in the pan or going across the pan. I am, for reference today, wearing the Hourglass Ambient Lighting, is that what it's called? The foundation, in the shade 10. I was going to say 10.5, but I think it's 10, which is my summer shade. For reference, that's a really nice shade. You know, the bronzer, it looks quite light in the pan, but I think, you know, Hourglass, a lot of Hourglass powders really are quite buildable, so that's nice. I think this is going to work for anyone with like a fair to medium skin tone. It's going to work on me, absolutely. The cheek products, the finishing powders are going to be quite light. Like if I put those all over my face, they are going to lighten my skin tone and probably look a little odd, but I could use them in the center of my face. But ultimately, I don't use those powders anyway, because I am not a powdery girl. You guys know this. By the way, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is that bronzer doing? That's my melasma. We can't blame Hourglass for that. Or can we? I mean, we can try. That's a really pretty bronzer. I feel like often the bronzers in these palettes are really warm, and that's maybe the product that I'm typically like, I don't know if I'm going to use that, but that is, my God, my squash bottle just started making a crazy noise, and I thought I was under attack from like a poltergeist, but it's fine. It's just my squash. Now that would be a video. Okay, so I really like the bronzer. That blended beautifully. It's got a nice sort of soft, luminous finish. Very pretty shade, not too orangey, not too warm. A nice sort of neutral warm tone, let's go with. Next, I'm going to use this highlighter. I'm excited about this because when I swatched it, I thought that's up my street. Okay, I'm using my Sonia G Fan Pro. It is a little light for me, this highlighter. You can see that's going to leave a little bit of a cast. Like if I face forward, I can see a little bit of a cast there on the skin, but it's going to be fine because we're going to blend it in, but it is kind of sitting on top of my skin tone a little. It's quite light for my skin tone, like I thought. I think this palette is going to be better suited for like up to a sort of light medium skin tone. Once you go into the medium, I think the highlighter is going to be a little light for how I like my highlighter to sort of melt into the skin tone. This is definitely looking like highlight on top of my skin because it's just a little too light, can look a little too chalky. And the finishing powders, you're not really going to be able to use them. The blushes and obviously the bronzer will work fine, but I think you would be better off, like me, with a Snake palette if you have a more medium and deeper skin tone. So I'm going to use this blush because we know what diffused heat looks like. We've seen it a million times. It's been done. You know, we've seen it. We know what that one looks like. So I'm going to use the new Rosy blush. Oh, and my Sonia G, what is this one called? The Classic Cheek from her latest collection. Oh, that is a pretty blush, isn't it? And that's going to really help my highlight out a little bit. It's going to help blend everything together. It's a really lovely blush. Very buildable. I think this could be really nicely built. Again, will work on like a medium skin tone, I think, easily. It's just those finishing powders. The highlighter is a little lighter, but it's looking better now that the blush is on there. Oh. Well, I mean, it's never in doubt. These palettes are always going to be super pretty, okay? You're never going to apply them and be like, ugly. I don't think. Has anyone ever done that? I don't think. I have never. I'm just going to use my Sonia G buffer to just diffuse the edges of this blush, and I'm using the slightly warmer shade of that. So it's definitely brightened up, and I think I'm literally using the teensiest little bit, and that's fine in the centre of my face. I wouldn't want to put these finishing powders all over, because then that is going to give me a bit of an odd look, but used very lightly in the centre of your face is going to give you a nice brightening effect. So I can use them, I just have to be strategic, you know? And who wants to be strategic with an £86 palette, you know? I want to use everything and I want to throw it at my face, careless, thoughtless, with not a care in the world. That's what I want. I don't know anyone else. Okay, so here is the finished look. It's beautiful. We knew it would be. It's absolutely delightful. I think the question with these palettes is always, do I have one that is exactly the same as that? And the answer is typically yes. If you've bought one or two before, you typically have this look, what it's going to give you. Does that stop a lot of us buying it? No, we don't know why, but we love them. They give me a lot of joy, these palettes. I really enjoy them. I think they're beautiful to look at. They're very fun to use and play with, and they give you a gorgeous look. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. But let's see if we have something similar already, okay? I have the Tiger palette from last year. I have the Elephant palette from last year. I've got the Sculpture palette from another year. And I've got the Unlocked palette from another year. I don't think there's any point in me doing swatch comparisons with the finishing powders, because most of them just aren't going to show up on my skin tone very well anyway, and we all know what they look like, don't we? So let's just compare the bronzer, blush and highlight shades, shall we? Okay, so starting off with the bronzer from the Jellyfish palette. Beautiful, nice neutral bronzer. Then we have the bronzer from Elephant from last year, and you can see how much more orangey and warm that one is, and that one is also much more shimmery. Then we have the finishing powder from the Tiger palette, because that wasn't officially a bronzer. It's a bronzer on me, but it is actually a finishing powder. And that one you can see deeper and more reddish in undertone. This one is definitely kind of in between the two. We then have the bronzer from the Unlocked palette. Again, warmer and much more shimmery. And the Sculpture bronzer, which is not doing so well. Colour a bit better. That is another quite neutral one. I'd say that's probably the closest to this new Jellyfish shade. That took a little bit more building though, but let's be fair, it's several years old at this point. So, you know, that's fair enough. It's probably a little tight. There we have the bronzers. So we've got the Jellyfish, we have Elephant, Tiger, Unlocked, Sculpture. Sculpture is pretty close to this new Jellyfish shade. Okay, moving on to the blushes from Jellyfish, that new rosy shade and Diffused Heat. Beautiful, nice glowy luminosity from the rose shade. The Diffused Heat is a little more sort of shimmery. Two blushes from Elephant. Oof. This shade is quite close actually to Diffused Heat. The other is totally different, much more of a sheeny blush, much more coral. But I mean, they're pretty similar, aren't they? 3 blushes in the Tiger palette, because I think again one of these was classed as a highlighter. Again, that first blush shade, pretty close to what we've got here. These are much more sort of highlighting blushes and much more orange. The Unlocked blushes, this is one of my favourite ever. I wish that was a single. Not really similar. These are a bit more sort of neutral and not as pink as what we have in Jellyfish. And then finally the Sculpture blushes, much brighter and much lighter actually, so that's interesting. I think the closest palette to these blushes is definitely Elephant for sure. Moving on to the highlighters, this is that gorgeous highlighter from Jellyfish. Then the highlighter in Elephant, interesting, much more golden and warm. Then we had 2 highlighters in Tiger, neither are similar to Jellyfish, much more pink and lighter. Then we have the Unlocked highlight, much more champagne, and the Sculpture highlight, which is much more subtle than any of the others, and I really love the highlighter out of Sculpture. That's probably like one of my favorite palettes to date. So there you have the highlighters. Okay, so those are all the comparisons that I have. No exact dupes of palettes, but I would say, I think if you have Butterfly, then you have, you know, your finishing powders. If you have the Elephant palette, you've basically got pretty much the same look that this is going to give you. The bronzer was definitely much warmer. I think I prefer 100% the bronzer. This is one of my favorite bronzers I think that I've ever had in one of these Hourglass palettes. I did really like the finishing powder as a bronzer from last year's Tiger palette, but this being a bronzer, it just has a bit more warmth to it. So I think this is my favorite bronzer from any of these palettes so far. I think it's just perfect. I also really love the bronzer in Sculpture, and this was really similar, so no surprises there. I think this new blush is beautiful. I love it. I was really pleasantly surprised that, given this was a metallic strobe powder, that it wasn't super metallic. Actually, when blended in, it's really melted beautifully into the skin. It is a little light for me in my skin tone, but I knew that was going to be the case. I really picked this palette up for review purposes to help you guys make your decisions. The one that I think has my heart and will be best suited to my skin tone is definitely the Snake palette, which I have ordered and which should be here tomorrow, so hopefully I can get that video up for you tomorrow. But overall, I think this is beautiful. I think this is most suited for like fair to light medium skin tone, so you can really get the most out of all of the products and use everything in here. If, like me, you have like 6 of these palettes and you don't buy them for review purposes, it's really a personal choice as to whether you need or want another one. You know, these palettes are makeup products that a lot of us just love and get a lot of joy and enjoyment and excitement and fun out of, and that's what makeup is really all about. If it's not for you, if you already have a couple and you feel like these aren't giving you anything new, then absolutely save your money. This is the time of year when makeup is raining, pouring from the sky, and we're almost drowning in it because, you know, holiday season is approaching as far as makeup launches are concerned. I'm not ready to face a Christmas tree or shopping just yet, but holiday makeup release season is right upon us. It's here. It's happening right now. These palettes, as of the time I'm making this video, are up on the US website, and they were up this morning on the UK website and then they went back down. I will link them in the description box. Just keep refreshing. They'll be back any moment, I'm sure. So please let me know which of these palettes you have your eye on, or if you are passing, you're all set for these palettes, you don't want or need anymore. Let us know in the comment section what your feelings and thoughts are on this Jellyfish palette, and hopefully, all being well, I'll see you tomorrow for the Snake palette, which I'm super excited for. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.